Hey everyone, welcome back. We are back with our interview series with none other than the amazing Lynn Vartan, who teaches at Southern Utah University. We somehow got her to hang out with Tony and I today. I know it's couldn't find better company, but we are getting ready for the Steve Weiss Mallet Festival. Lynn is one of our featured artists, and when I started telling folks at Weiss that we were going to have Lynn for the Mallet Festival this year, it was like this buzz started going around Weiss. Lynn is just like so well known for being so kind and cheerful and has visited Weiss several times. So we're really excited to have her not only around Pennsylvania for that weekend, but hanging out with us, recording with us a little bit. So welcome, Lynn. I also have my amazing co-host, Tony Miceli, here. For better or for worse, you get Tony and I. So this time it's even better with Lynn. So welcome, Lynn. We're going to talk about a couple things, but maybe you can just start off and tell us a little bit about your background, what you've been up to recently, and maybe some of the things that we could look forward to with the festival coming up.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. This is such an honor and such a pleasure to be here. And I mean, we've talked about knowing each other over the years through different ways. And so it's really great to make these connections happen. I mean, that's something that I'm really passionate about and really believe in. And Tony, we've been talking so much and sharing already. So, like, I feel like this is just like the next obvious step. And so it's really a pleasure to be here. And I absolutely love Steve Weiss. I mean, my relationship goes way, 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 way back with Weiss, and it's an honor. It's just absolutely an honor to be a part of this. So yay. My background is, let's see, I'm from Central California and from Fresno, exactly to be exact. And I went to a arts high school, and then I moved to LA right out of high school and just wanted to be in the city and do the whole thing. And I did all of my schooling in LA. And finished up at USC with my master's and my doctorate. And then broad strokes, I moved to Utah in 2008, and 15 years later, here I am. So that's kind of the gist of it. People know me for marimba playing, of course, but maybe some of the other things that people don't know that might be interesting to get into a bit is that I'm really passionate about world music. I play a lot of hand drums. I studied a lot of hand drums coming up in LA with Jerry Steinholtz, who I, hold near and dear to my heart in his memory. And all of that. And then I'm also really involved in a lot of collaborative arts with dance and film and all of that kind of thing. So those are some of the things that I'm really excited about. Things to look forward to in the year to come is I'm commissioning a ton, and I'm happy to talk about that because I just am really passionate about where our repertoire is going and where our repertoire can be. So that's something that's really interesting to me. And then one project that I'm really excited about is we're going to play one of my favorite pieces of all time together, which is Tribeca Sunflower by Julie Spencer. So I'm looking forward to that. I've also got a piece with Delay that I love called Zoo. That's a real passion of mine. It's one of these pieces that I've been pushing quite a bit. A couple old favorites. People really love Machine Shop, which is a piece that was written for me with electric guitars. So you'll see that live and in person. So yeah, that's a little bit of that.
Yeah, Tony and I have been going back and forth because, Tony's obviously more of a jazz player and I have a classical kind of mallet background. And he's like, man, I'm playing this piece with Lynn and it's going to be, and I'm like, dude, you got it, man. You got it. And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, you got it. You got it. So I've been pep talking him through it, but he's going to kill it. I can tell.
Oh, and the thing about the piece is it's really kind of a fun sort of blow, it's really a party. It's not I mean, I'm speaking for Julie, but I don't really think it's a classical piece in that way. I mean, it's just really just a party in a box is how I like to describe it. So,
And if
Yeah,
you know Julie, you know her personality, you know how much energy she has. It's like, that looking forward to that for sure.
yeah.
Um,
A party in 1316, I might add. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, da one. I've been doing
that's it.
all
That's
week,
it.
and then I looked at your duo, with Darkwood duo,
Yes.
and I got to play a piece with a guy down in Costa Rica, and it's a classical piece, and I haven't done anything like this in 40 years. And I was watching you play with her, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to But I'm just going to spend hours and hours and hours and hours.
It's good for him, Lynn. It's good for him. Don't
It,
worry.
it actually is.
Those kinds of pieces, I mean, it's just a different kind of collaboration, right? You just have to find, it's just a little bit of a different language, but like the connection of chamber music, I mean, that's the same as a connection in a jazz combo, really.
Yeah, but I'm making it up so I can just listen and play. And if I'm playing something that's getting too intense, I can back off of it. But in this piece, it's like, okay, I got to play triplets here. But yes, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But so it's interesting that Tribeca is about you, and that the Darkwood duo like tied in when I saw it and did it. Now I'll tell you the another thing. Let's see. How do I ask this question? Do you have a lot of confidence when you play? I mean, you nail it when you play. It's articulate, it's clear, and I don't sense any. I don't know. I mean, I always think of these instruments like drums, and in my mind, and I'm not a marimba player, so I'm just saying, but in my mind, that is a drum, and it's got to be articulate and it has to be clear. And I've been listening to you play, and I just keep thinking, man, she is articulate. It's clear. She nails it. So you've got to walk up to that thing and just be like, okay, here we go. You're going to do what I want you to do. Am I right?
Well, I mean, in the best case scenario, we want that, of course. And first, Tony, thank you so much for your kind words. That's really, I mean, that means so much to me. I really appreciate it. And I mean, I guess the short way to answer that, speaking of Darkwood, I was just at the International Clarinet Festival in Denver, and I saw one of the teachers who taught at USC, who's a famous clarinet professor, Yehuda Gilad, and he was giving a master class, and he was talking about nerves, and he said, if you don't feel nerves, I don't believe you. I don't trust it, right? Like if you're not scared, I don't believe you, or there's something wrong with you. So I think that I'm always nervous and always scared, and because otherwise I think that then you're missing something about the live performance thing and feeling that. So I think my trick is just like, when I prepare, I want to prepare to feel comfortable. And this is one of the things I talk to with my students all the time, because I think my students sometimes get in the habit, or any students sometimes get in the habit of preparing just to get it right once. And it's like, that's just not going to be there for you. So for me, when I prepare, the idea is that I prepare so that I'm comfortable enough that anything could happen and it'll be okay. Having said that, there's mistakes all the time, and that's a whole nother part of the psyche, is that you have to like deal with that. And I'm always, I think we all deal with that, like I make mistakes and I'm just so frustrated about it. But at the same time, like, it's important to keep the big picture of like, why am I playing? Like, why am I on stage playing? I'm on stage playing because I want to give something to the audience. I want to make a connection with the audience. And if that's first and foremost, and then my preparation supports it, then whatever happens is going to happen and it'll be fine. So that's, I think, where that confidence comes from. But it's not real confidence. It's just trust in the process.
It's developed. I think I think your answer was really cool. And I think it'll benefit. It will benefit a lot of people. But go ahead, Matt. I mean, I have more.
No, I was just gonna say is that like when I kind of noticed something similar about Lynn's playing is like, but the thing is that your confidence to me comes from the fact that like you look like every note you're playing is like the funnest note you've played in your entire life. Like, oh my gosh, F sharp, you've never sounded better. You know what I mean? But like I think you just radiate this like musicianship, and I think that's part of it. Sounds weird to say that, your look and the confidence and all that kind of like is part of your sound, but like you're like the full artist, you know what I mean? You have like everything, going for you. And I think that, I don't know, is that something you talk about with your students as well, is like, the performance aspect of how they look and what they're kind of concealing to the audience?
Well, that is just like the best compliment that you can give anyone. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean,
it's true. It's genuine true. I don't want you to think I'm just saying it. It's very true.
Well, that's, I mean, I'm like speechless, because that is everything that I stand for, is that. I mean, it is about for me, it's this whole pursuit of everything that we're doing, hitting things, right? We're hitting pieces of wood and drums and all that. But my whole pursuit is like really exploring what it means to be an artist, you know, and not just a percussionist, which I mean, I don't mean like that sounds stupid, but but it's going beyond that, you know, and it is about the sounds that we're making. It is about every F sharp. It is about what is the right F sharp, you know, like you strike like in the room at that time with what's going on in your life and what's going on in the world and what's going on. I mean, it's all of those things. So it's amazing that you see and hear that. And I really appreciate that, because that absolutely is everything that I stand for, is that composite of not just the instruments, but the specificity of the sounds that they're making, and then how all that translates like to an audience to make people feel something, whether it's something really happy in Tribeca or whether it's something really intense. A piece that I used to play a lot and still play a lot is In the Fire of Conflict by Christos Hatsis, which is really intense. And but the same thing, that's supposed to be, you know, the whole point is to get all those things out there and connect. And that's my goal at all times. And I believe in the artistry of it. And I explore that with my students constantly. I think that's one of the things that we talk about. I mean, maybe even more than some of the technical things, you know, because I feel like, yeah, that all needs to be in order. You have to have your technique, you have to be able to play, but then what, you know? And so we talk a lot about the decision making with phrases and with sound and with feeling and with what are you trying to say? What are you trying to do with this music? So yeah, those are all things that I really believe in and talk about all the time. I love talking about.
So if you don't mind, like, I think that this is a good kind of transition, is that one of the questions I wrote down to, I guess, get your perspective on, because I love asking this question to people, is just like, if you were starting your career as a percussionist, like starting in undergrad, maybe even before, maybe even from the high school stage right now, what do you think the biggest thing to focus on as you're starting, you know, we've talked about this in some of the past interviews we've done, but I kind of consider like when you become an undergraduate in college, if you're going the college route, that's like the beginning of your percussion career, if you will, right? So whether you necessarily feel that way or not, you know, what do you think whenever someone considers themselves to be starting their career, what's the most important thing to focus on for the next generation of percussionists? Because the field is changing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious what you think, and I know that's a heavy question, so don't feel like you need to get, you know.
That is such a heavy question. I mean, God, I can think of like a whole hour to talk about, you know, of those things. And, you know, I think there's the simple things that are always true. There are the complex things that are always true. And then there are the things that are really relevant to this moment. And so I guess, you know, off the top of my head, I think I would divide them into those three categories. So, you know, the simple things that are always true is that you absolutely have to have great technique, great time, and you know, a great foundation on all the instruments. And I think that's something that you know, I think that's something that it's easy to get lost in. I just used this word, but in the specificity of our moment, you know, how we can like hyper curate. Like sometimes I have students who come to me and they've never heard anyone play, you know, a great snare drum solo. They've only listened to marimba solos. Like that's all they've done their YouTube deep dives on is that. And so, you know, I think it's really important not to forget that well-rounded thing that has to happen before that has to be there. So your technique, your time, and I would put pocket along that side. And then that well-rounded base, those are things that have always been true and are always true. So like, okay, that's the boring part, but you've got to do that, right? Okay, then that's the simple things that are always true. The complex things that are always true and still are true, and maybe this is where my teaching starts to veer in a little bit of a different direction, is that I think it's really important to start developing identity early on in your playing and in your concept, knowing who you are, what things you really gravitate towards, what things you do really well. Just start understanding that concept of identity so that you can really play to your strengths, but also grow your things that maybe you're not so strong on. And I think of that personally, and also musically. But that development of identity is something that I start right away as an undergrad. I think that that's really important. Not that you should not do anything else. It's just that you need, I think understanding that and developing that is really important. So that's the complex things that are always true. The last thing is what I think is crucial at this time, what may be different than maybe when I was an undergrad or when, we were in school or whatever. But I think some of the things that are really important now is, I think, gosh, some of them are not music things. I think the ability for someone to really be a great conversationalist, which means you develop your sense of curiosity. And so maybe, I guess that's the key word is I think that something that's really important for students now is to develop curiosity along with discipline. And I think maybe those two things are not, it's easy for those not to happen in today's world, I think, and so I always encourage that. And we spend a lot of time in my studio talking about other kinds of arts forms, other kinds of sports, and both the discipline and curiosity that goes into producing excellence in those areas and how that applies. So I think those things are also really important. But we could go on and on, right? The knowledge of technology, the knowledge of all these other things, and really how to leverage your entrepreneurial spirit. All those things also come into play as well. So it's kind of a big list.
Yeah, it's like I hate to say the age of just being really great at your instrument is over. I don't necessarily mean that, because there's always going to be a place for people that are insanely talented. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, I think there's more opportunity than now for folks that in that third category you kind of described, for those folks to have this opportunity, based off of some of those, curiosity based skills and
Yeah.
So,
But I think I would push back just a little bit, because I think you need to be great at your
Right.
instrument, and I think that we can't lose that as a priority.
Right.
I feel pretty strongly about that, and I think that's hard. And I know that's not what, I know you weren't saying like don't be good at your instrument or anything,
Right.
but I think that craftsmanship, has to, that force of craftsmanship, that desire for excellence at that simple but true stuff, I think that has to be there, because everybody's going to try to do everything right now, but the ones who are really going to go to the top are going to be the ones that have the curiosity and discipline, but supported by those other things. And I think that's really important, not just with percussion, but we just started a commercial music degree, and I teach the entrepreneurial musician class, and we have so many singer songwriters who come in there, and they're living in Cedar City, Utah, and I'm trying to teach these same things to them, because it's going to be the same thing in that as well. The ones who will really have that longevity in terms of a substantial career, I think are going to be the ones that really have all of that stuff in order. So yeah.
No, I totally.
Now, I think what you just said is so heavy, and you covered like all the stuff. Like I'm not saying it because we're doing a podcast and I have to say nice things about you and you're doing the festival. I would say other things. If I thought, oh my God, she's horrible. What am I going to say? And so it's not that, but I was blown away by what you said. It's part of it. You sounded like a jazz musician, which I thought was so cool. I don't think I've ever, no. I don't think often I hear classical people say you have to have good time. And that's the first thing out of every jazz musician's mouth. You have to have some kind of groove happening. You said that's kind of cool. And I always tell my students, I don't know what you're going to be doing in 10 years, but if you leave school and you're great at this, then you know how to be great. So if you leave school average at this, then you know how to be average, unless there's something else you do that's great. So I'm with you there. I know most of students at graduate music school, they're not going to be most of marimba players or vibe players are not going to be playing marimba or vibes, but there's something about just here's my instrument, bam, I know what to do to make it work. Now you go off to law school, you know what to do to make it work.
Right.
You know, so yes, so yay, that was fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. I'm sorry I sprung that on you last minute. That was like, but we get into some real stuff here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love it. No, I love it. I think that's really important, and I love having these conversations and getting into the nitty gritty of it, and I'm a big fan of, learning about mastery, learning about excellence, learning about that process. That those things are really important to me. But you got to have pocket, you've got to have time, I mean, that was I learned how important that was. I think I took it for granted because my early teachers pushed that so much and it was just a part of what we did. But now, having gone through this career, that's just a foundational thing that sets everything up. So
Awesome.
Yes, I mean, I always tell my students there's no such thing as a great musician with bad time. There's great musicians with maybe not great technique. There's great musicians that don't have a great sense of harmony. But if the person is great, they have great time. There's no substitution. You can't get around it. There's nothing you can do about it. And everybody can acquire it. So it's not like it's, some people talk about, well, either you got it or you don't. You know what? That's just bullshit. Either you work hard at it or you don't. And if you work hard at it, 95% of the time you get it, 98%.
See, this is why you two are going to kill it together on Julie's piece. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah. Wait, I was feeling relaxed now. Now I'm all.
So if you don't mind if I backtrack just a hair, Lynn,
sure.
You had brought up kind of like your long relationship with Weiss and things like that. I just love asking this question because this is again, it's a tough one for people, but do you remember your first Steve Weiss order?
No, I don't. But I do remember it was way before the website. I remember when you used to have to call and it was a thing. And my students, because I lived in California, so we were calling the East Coast. So there was always that, like, you've got to call before, it was California time, got to call before 2 p.m., and at the time, back in the day, occasionally you'd get maybe some sort of characters on the phone. And I don't know, who they were, but, you'd get these characters like, hey, what, this kind of thing. And so my students and their parents, I would always kind of tell them, like, they are the best company, but, you might get someone who's a little bit rough and tumble on the phone with you because they'd be like, yeah, what do you, what do you want? What do you need? that kind of thing. So, and for us in California, we're not used to that. So I do remember that. I remember the phone for sure.
There's a lot of people, although they are, I guess, slipping through the cracks now, that had to order from one of these, which was the Weiss catalog. It's funny now, since I've been with Weiss since November 1st now, I feel like anyone that finds one of these, they feel like obligated to mail it to me. Just like, hey Matt, here's, like, as if I don't have a stack of them in my basement. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's
so
great.
So it's funny to me, but yeah, it's fun. Think about it. If you ever do remember, I would love to know, what your first order was. But we love people or asking people that, because even if they can't remember, they remember something or some story. You know what I mean? So
hey, I know if my girlfriend was watching, she'd say it's always about you. I know it's not about me today, but my first order was an M55 for $1,800. That's what it cost then. And after that, anything I wanted from Steve Weiss, because I used to go there all the time, I would just go in and say, can I give you half now? He'd say, give me half now. When you get the rest, give it. It was such a great experience once Steve trusted you. And then the typewriter. He used to sit there with his typewriter and type up all the receipts and yeah, he was well, that's why I do the festival, because I just I loved him.
We love hearing all the stories and memories of Steve. And speaking of the festival, before I forget, it would be who of me not to plug this, but as of yesterday until August 8th, you can get Lynn's signature mallets, you can get some of Lynn's sheet music, you can get Tony's signature mallets, some of Tony's sheet music, as well as all the other artists that have signature products and sheet music on our site. 10% off. It's a great deal. if you want to stock up for the semester, upcoming semester. It's just we're really excited to have this as a promotion as part of the festival, and we're it's our internal promotion. That's how much we believe in these products and the people that we hired for the festival this year. So really excited to do that. I even might pick some stuff up. We'll see. There's some things I want to check out. So very cool. I got one last question, and then maybe if we're lucky, Lynn will play for us a little bit. But I have to ask this. The 2 times that I corresponded with Lynn before this, she's like, oh, I'm in was it Estonia? Was it
Romania?
Romania. And then for the next one, it was like, hey, can we do the podcast this day? And she's like, well, I'm going to Japan in 24 hours. So can you just maybe talk about some of the traveling and what you were doing when you were traveling? I don't know if you were vacationing, if you were playing or what, but I got to hear about this personally. So sorry, this is all, Tony said it was all about him before. It's all about me now. I just want to know where you've been. So
yeah, well, I've been really fortunate. I have so much travel that's come up this year, and I have a lot more coming in the year to come. I'm actually going to be on sabbatical for the academic year, so I have even more international travel. The Romania trip was a really incredible program. It basically is a mini Fulbright through a program called Erasmus. And they had a connection with Southern Utah University, and they put a call out to campus, and they said, we've got this mini Fulbright, and it goes to one faculty member. And so you have to apply through it, and you have to travel in May. And so I thought, well, that sounds great. And they listed the disciplines that could do it, and performing arts were one of them. And so I put a proposal together and won the scholarship, which is great, or the fellowship, and then ended up making a much longer trip of it because I wanted to work with it. I had a couple contacts in Bucharest, and then I wanted to go all over. So that trip ended up being about 3 weeks, and it was Bucharest all the way up through Bronze Castle, Dracula's Castle, and then I spent the week at the university in Cluj, which is a beautiful city, and then came down through a couple of the other real scenic towns. There's Shibu and Shigishura, and then spent a few days in the coastal area of Constanța, and then back to Bucharest out. And it was incredible. I had not been to Romania before, and I kind of fell in love with it. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with just the way they do things, the way it feels to walk around there, the way it feels to drive. I got a car and drove the whole way. And it was I was so comfortable. I felt very comfortable. I absolutely loved the fashion in Cluj. I loved working with the students. I was working quite a bit with sound design students, and we were talking a lot about collaboration in sound and film. And that was really interesting to talk about, when to use live sound and when to use real players, that's as opposed to just designing things in your computer. So that was really interesting. So that was the Romania trip. Japan was, I have some students that I mentor remotely in Japan, and I should mention that if anybody is listening and is interested, I love doing remote teaching, but especially mentorship as well. And so I have several students that I meet on a regular basis, and we talk about all the things that we've talked about today. We talk about career development, we talk about identity, we talk about, if you just get stuck and you're not quite sure what to do next, or if you don't know what to do with a piece. And so I have some students in Japan that do that. And then I have a relationship a bit with JPC, the Japan Percussion Center there, with Mr. Komaki. And so we also had some projects to talk about and some things to discuss. And so the Japan trip was that, and then also some sightseeing as well. So Tokyo and Osaka and Kyoto.
Wow. I'm just like, I'm jealous. So I am not internationally traveled. I will be one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have not done a lot of international travel. My fiance has been to Italy, and she's done all these exciting things. I've been to Canada. So which is like, it's not nothing, but it's not Japan. But one day.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to hear about that. And
Yeah.
really cool to hear about just all the things you're involved in. I feel like anyone that's watching this that knows you as a marimba player, I feel like a lot of folks know you from, at least our demographic of viewer probably knows you as a marimbist and a just a percussionist, but just a percussionist, you know what I mean? But but it sounds like you're doing so many incredible things, and I'm sure that your musicianship and personality is just as strong in every other category. So it's incredible. So if you'd be willing
Thank
to
you.
play something for us, do you have something planned, or what do you think
Yeah.
you're playing?
Well, I was just going to there's just a tiny little middle section of one of the pieces that it's not a very well known piece. This is the piece with delay that I was talking about. It's called Zoo. It's a beautiful piece, and for most of the piece, you have delay, which is really cool with marimba, and then there's a rain soundscape with it. But the center of the piece it just has a little snippet that's just quite beautiful that doesn't have any rain or any delay. And so I thought that I would, play a little bit of that, and that's like a little teaser for one of the pieces that you'll hear at the festival.
It was nice.
Really nice.
Yeah, really nice.
Awesome. So, and you're going to play that at the festival as well, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So yeah, a little snippet. You can check out the rest at the Steve Weiss Mallet Festival this year. We have Lynn on Friday, August 4th and Sunday, August 6th. And you'll be around, I think, for at least dinner and some of the things for Chris's Jazz Cafe on Saturday. And we're going to be shooting some content with Lynn. I am excited. This is it's going to be really good. Going to be really good.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
So cool.
Yeah,
Well,
I
thank you,
can't
Lynn,
wait.
for hanging out with us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I can't wait to be there. I'm really excited. I can't wait to hear everyone else and just share the magic.
It's going to be really great. So awesome.